always maintained a clear sense of his calling in this world. Martin is the host and managing editor of TV One Cable Network, where for 4 years he hosted NewsOne Now, the first daily morning show in history focused on news and analysis of politics, entertainment, sports, and culture from an explicitly African-American perspective. In April, Roland Martin will launch his daily digital show, #Roland Martin Unfiltered, which will be a general news show focused on news and events of the day and will travel across the country reporting from remote locations. Mr. Martin, if you're looking for anyone else on your staff, I know someone with 14 years journalistic experience, just seizing the moment here. Since 2008, Mr. Martin has been a senior analyst for the Time Warner Morning Show, where his daily segment is heard on more than 100 stations and 8 million people every day. He is the author of 3 books, Listening to the Spirit Within, 50 Perspectives on Faith, Speak Brother, A Black Man's View of America, and the first, President Barack Obama's Road to the White House, as originally reported by Roland S. Martin, and he is listed as a contributor on many others. He has been named 4 times by Ebony Magazine as one of the 150 most influential African Americans in the U.S. When Jet Magazine readers voted in 2012 for who is the king of the hill in terms of who they turn to on issues of concern to African Americans, Martin came out on top, ahead of others like Reverend Al Sharpton and Donna Brazile. NewsOne.com named as the #1 black pundit in the country, and he has been named several times to the Route 100 on their annual list of influential African Americans. In his career, Mr. Martin has been showered with more than 30 awards for journalistic excellence, including being named as the Journalist of the Year in 2013 by the National Association of Black Journalists for his extensive focus on voter suppression and other issues of concern to African Americans during the 2012 election. In 2008, he was inducted into the Texas A&M University Journalism Hall of Honor. He's a 4-time NAACP Image Award winner, including named Best Host for the last 2 years. He has spent 6 years as a contributor for CNN. Mr. Martin is a lifetime member of the National Association of Black Journalists and a life member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He is a 1987 graduate of Jack Gates School Magnet School of Communications and a 1991 graduate of Texas A&M University, where he earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in journalism. He has been awarded honorary degrees from Florida Memorial University, University of Maryland, University College, Lemoyne-Owens College, Lane College, and South Carolina State University. He is married to the Reverend Jackie Hood Martin, who's an author of Fulfilled, The Art and Joy of Balanced Living and Wedded Bliss, a 52-week devotional to balanced living, and the children's series, Hannah's Heart. They reside in the Washington, D.C. area. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome them to South Louisiana and show them what Southern University has to offer. None other, our guest here for the evening, the distinguished and honorable Mr. Roland S. Martin.
All right, how we doing? All right, that's great, great. It's like a club in here. Can y'all turn the lights up, please? Like it's a little dark. So we good? All right, then. Glad to see everyone here. Folks all dressed, suited and booted. Glad to see all of you. It is great to be back in Louisiana, where my grandparents are from. They are natives of Opelousas, Louisiana. So I've been here a lot. I was just here for Essence Festival. And then, of course, I saw that all police are on alert this weekend in New Orleans for your makeup convention. What? I'm sorry, what? Did you not think I was going to take a shot? Really? Really? Where my alphas at? Coldest in the boldest, the rest of my youth groups. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Glad to see again everybody here. There are folks in here who I do know. It is not the first time I've addressed folks at Southern. I spoke several years ago as part of the lecture series on campus. And so I'm glad to see all of you here. And last night I was at a party in Colorado, and I heard Sonya Norwood all the way there. So she probably was playing big whist and was like talking all kind of smack. Where's she at? Where's she at? She is so loud playing big whist. So I had a dinner party in Los Angeles. Whenever I go to LA, folks always want to get together and can do lunch, can do dinner. I'm like, look, I can't eat with all y'all people, okay? So we're going to have one gathering. Man, Sonya, and her husband, they were playing director Bill Duke. Oh, they were so black playing big whist. They were black, and they were just yelling, screaming. Now, Bill Duke, y'all, is, first off, a phenomenal director. Some of y'all like, Bill Duke, the brother who played Abdullah in Car Wash. Y'all like, oh yeah, now I know, okay. So Bill considers himself to be big whist expert. Man, it was, they were playing, they got so loud, they almost ran us out of that neighborhood in LA, at Vanessa Bill Calloway's house. And so it is good to see her and good to see Michelle McCallum, fellow NABJ member as well. And so glad to be here in this state. In the times that we in. Anytime you can get out of D.C. these days is good. Because D.C. has been invaded by crazy people. There's a whole bunch of crazy orange people running around D.C. It's been quite interesting. In fact, somebody asked me, they said, Roland, have you met the president? I'm like, yeah, I was at the White House for 8 years when Obama was there for a variety of programs. And then they said, but no, have you met the new one? I said, I can't call him president. I can't. I was there last when he spoke to Congress. So they have this luncheon with all the television anchors before he gives a speech before Congress. So I was at the first one, and they were all walking in, and you know, like everybody gets up and walk up. Mr. President, how you doing? I just stepped back. I was like, I ain't in no rush to meet him. And so we're walking up, and literally I'm sitting there going, I cannot call this man Mr. President. And so when he walks over and goes, how you doing? I go, hi. Mr. didn't come out, President didn't come out, I just said hi. I'm sorry. And I've said this on television, the day I called Donald Trump president is the day he respects the White House. And so my deal is, the day you respect the White House, the day I respect the office of president. That's just how I roll. I don't hide my views, I don't hide how I feel, and so, you know, you say crazy stuff, then I'm gonna call you out for saying crazy stuff. And so that's just how we do it. And so that's how I've always rolled. A few years ago when I was on Monique's show on BET, she asked me, she said, you know, I'm just afraid that, you know, you say stuff, I'm afraid you're gonna get fired. And I was like, Monique, look, I said, I start every job with the premise I'm gonna get fired anyway. I mean, if you really think about it, a lot of us have had jobs and we don't want to say anything on a job to protect our job, and we get laid off, now we mad as hell because we ain't say nothing all that time. And then you work with those people who I call parking lot militants. Oh, y'all know. They real militant in the parking lot. Don't say nothing in the office. So my philosophy has always been the same. I'm going to speak truth regardless of whatever, which is why I have 5 different jobs. That way, if any one end, I'm good. I can just switch, go to the other ones. That's always been my thing. Almost been my thing. Also, let me thank all the folks who come up to me. I've gotten this all over the country for the last 7 months. Folks who are avid watchers of TV1's NewsOne Now. Folks, I had folks who said they set their work schedule, their workout schedule around the show. Of course, NewsOne Now ended December 21st after 4 years. We were the first morning show targeting African Americans, and so folks are like, oh my God, I can't believe what's going on. And they asked me, what are you doing, what are you doing? And so we announced on July 2nd that beginning September 4th, I'll be launching a daily digital show. And which means that those of you who do not know how to work your phone, I'm going to need you over the next 45 days to read your manual. But it will be Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll be a daily digital show. We'll be streaming 6 p.m. Eastern. So all the folks in LA can stop cussing me out. They were mad getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so the reason we were launching this, and I'm going to do this in my text as well, is because we have to understand that we cannot be in a position where we are asking somebody else to tell our story. We cannot be in that position. Second, we also must monetize our culture. What I mean by that is folks have become billionaires off of black people. Folks were so excited and just hyped about Black Panther. Also, let me warn y'all, I ain't wearing this because of Wakanda. I actually went to Ghana 10 years ago where I got it. So folks are like, oh, Wakanda. No, Ghana. And I understand. First off, phenomenal movie, Chadwick Boseman did a great job, Ryan Coogler did a great job. It made $1.4 billion for Disney. Let me repeat that. Black Panther made $1.4 billion for Disney. And they're going to be spin-offs of that movie. I would not be surprised if Black Panther ends up collectively earning upwards of $10 billion for Disney. I'm saying that because we have to understand that so many others have made billions off of us. And if we came into this country 398.5 years ago providing free labor, I think it's time for black folks to monetize our culture for ourselves. So we're launching this. You can go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com for more details. We have folks who are joining our fan club as well, and we're going to, and the other most important reason why we're doing this, because by it being independent, we can also say what needs to be said and not be afraid to do so. So I'm looking forward to that come September 4th. And so go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be live streaming the show daily, Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and also on other platforms like Roku and Apple TV. Let me get down to the task at hand. Anytime you stay in front of as many black people, you need to tag your text. Now, if you don't know what tag your text means, you must be one of the new black people who don't no longer go to church. So if you got somebody sitting next to you who has no idea what tag your text is, just lean over and don't embarrass them and say, that's a church saying, you heathen. So I'm going to call this, and I want you to turn to your neighbor, we must protect this house. So look to your left and tell the person to your left, we must protect this house. Okay, I want you to look to your right and tell that person, we must protect this house. Okay, all right, now we straight. So tomorrow somebody asks you what I talked about and you can't remember, at least you can remember the title of what I talked about, that'll get you through. So last night I was in Colorado at the home of billionaire Robert Smith. Robert Smith is a brother, African American, went to Cornell University, he's an alpha brother of mine, and he is the second richest African American in the country, worth $2.4 billion. And Robert had a private party at his home. It was last night and tonight. And he was like, dude, you gotta tell these other people later. I was like, nah, bro, they booked me about 7 months ago, so I'm at your party for free. You already got your $2.4 billion. And so where we were located, where his place in Colorado is also the site of what is called Lincoln Hills. And Lincoln Hills, and he described for me what it was. I never heard of it. It was a resort in Colorado that was owned by African Americans. And he described for me what it was like going there, growing up, and folks went there in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and it was where Lena Horne and where Count Basie and Cab Calloway, where many of them would come to get away, and that's where they vacationed. And then as he was talking about that, I began to think about other places in this country where African Americans, because we could not stay in hotels, could not visit other places, that were these enclaves where African Americans vacation. And you would talk to black folks who are in their 70s and 80s, and they will tell you about these places, and their children have fond memories of vacationing in these places. Yet a significant number of these places began to die in the 60s and early 70s because of immigration. And as we were talking, I told Robert, I said, this reminds me of what Gerald Horne lays out, what he called the Jim Crow paradox. And I'm reading a book by Gerald Horne. He's a phenomenal professor at the University of Houston. His book is called The Rise and Fall of the Associated Negro Press, Clark Barnett's Pan-African News, and the Jim Crow Paradox. It's one of the books that I'm actually reading as we speak. And what he defines as the Jim Crow paradox are all of these black institutions who were fighting aggressively against segregation, against Jim Crow, to break down all of these barriers. And while they were achieving success after success, they were literally guaranteeing their demise. And so I'm reading this book, and I'm reading about all these African Americans who were covering World War I and World War II, and who were providing dispatches from all of these theaters of war, and the folks who were covering the Korean War, and all of these amazing stories. And they were covering how the end of colonialism in many African nations, and how many of these African nations were gaining their independence. And while African nations were gaining their independence from colonialism, and all these black newspapers were covering all these different things, while that was happening, while they were forcing Harry Truman to issue his executive order, of course, ending segregation in the armed forces, while they were battling forces all across the country, at every moment that was a success, they were guaranteeing their demise. April 15th, every year, Major League Baseball, every player wears number 42. In honor of Jackie Robinson. He is the only player to have his number retired in the entire league. No player can wear the number 42 except on that day in Major League Baseball. And African Americans were excited and proud, and because Jackie Robinson went to the major leagues, but it was that flow from Jackie Robinson to Larry Doby to Campanella and all the other players that led to the demise and the shutdown of Negro leagues. In fact, I often tell people that I don't fall for the okie doke by saying that Jackie Robinson made it to the major leagues, because the reality is, with the star players who were in the Negro leagues, that actually was the major leagues. I would often say that so-called major leagues was the minor leagues, because many of them could not make it in the Negro leagues. What only made them major was the facilities and the uniforms and the travel. It was not because of the players. Some of y'all gonna get that a little bit later tonight. You're gonna figure out exactly what I said. And so, if you begin to think about all of these institutions, when you begin to think about the enormous sway that Ebony magazine had on our culture, Jet magazine, if you were black, you did not care if you made the cover of Time and Newsweek. But if you made the cover of Jet, that's when you knew you made it. We didn't, that's how it was. Folks like, oh, you was a Time? Okay, I ain't never seen you in Jet. That's how it was. And it's rough too, because unfortunately this generation has no idea what it was like for that small little magazine to come in the mail and showing the exploits of black people. And now, plus, if you want to see a Jet Beauty of the Week, you can just go to Instagram now, but you had to wait a week for Jet. But it told the story of our people when other folks didn't. Our black newspapers. Robert Abbott founded the Chicago Defender in 1905. That newspaper led the great migration of blacks from the south to the north. The reason you had significant black population, even to this day, in Detroit, and Cleveland, and Gary, Indiana, and all those places was because of the Chicago Defender. Robert Abbott became a millionaire riding around in a Rolls Royce because he did, which we always knew. Our institutions, the Jim Crow paradox. So why am I saying all of that today in 2018? Because as we sit here in this hotel, a hotel we could not have sat in 50 years ago, we are 25 years away from America being a nation that is a majority people of color. Let me say that again. The year 2043, according to the census, that's when they estimate America will be the nation that's majority people of color. Right now, in a significant number of states, the annual death rate of white Americans is higher than the annual birth rate of white Americans. Don't be confused about what you are seeing happening in America today. What is happening in America today doesn't have a damn thing to do with economic anxiety. No. What it is fear of what is coming. It is fear. This effort to limit Latinos and others from coming into the country, it is all tied to 2043. 2012, Greg Pallas reports that there were 112 million registered Americans to vote. There are 110 million folks registered today. Ask yourself, how can our population be increasing in America, but our number of folks who registered is decreasing? It is because people who look like you have been targeted for the last 10 years because of what happened in 2008. That is by design. You heard when they read my bio when I got NABJ's Journals of the Year. It is because in 2012 we were focused on voter suppression. We focused on it every single week. And see, the problem is we have folks who have allowed ourselves to get caught up in somebody else's game. Literally, folks, by saying it's voter fraud, because no, America saw what happened when black folks exercised power. They saw it. And you've had this massive attack ever since. North Carolina, they went from the bottom of voter participation to the top 10, and Republicans in North Carolina said, oh, hell no. And they have been on this massive effort to actually limit black participation. In fact, the federal courts ruled, this is stunning, that there was a laser-like focus on black voters. They literally asked in emails, when do black people vote? And they concluded, oh, black folks vote in the first week of early voting. Good, we're going to limit early voting. I'm trying to paint a picture because we need to understand that we are still dealing with the Jim Crow paradox today, because as we are assimilating, as we are moving to other areas, as we are we can go to any restaurant, we can go to any place, even though these days you can't be black and swim because people will be checking your ID, or you can't be black selling lemonade, they're going to call the cops, or you can't be black sitting here selling hot dogs, they're going to call the cops. I mean, you know what's bad when you black selling candy outside of a store and white folks calling the cops. I mean, we thought it was driving while black, now it's selling lemonade while black. I'm laying that out because we actually have to be intentional in everything that we are doing, because if we are not protecting our own, it will not be here. Now see, I know that makes some folk uncomfortable. And if you want to be comfortable, you should have invited my wife. She's a minister. She could have prayed with you, laid hands on you. God has given her this great spirit of comfort, but he's given me a spirit of discomfort. My job is to make folk uncomfortable. And I'm laying all this out because if you begin to study our institutions today, if you begin to understand the pillars of a community, and you begin to say it's education, it's economic, and it's media, we are moving towards a point where we will be the majority, along with Asians and Latinos, as people of color, yet we may very well look like South Africa, where you have demographic numbers, but you literally don't have economic and education power. And I'm ringing this alarm because 2043 is real. It is going to happen. It is not going to somehow reverse. White people are not going to start having 8, 10 kids and catch up to black folks and Latinos. It's not going to happen. And so when we begin to look at our institutions, black banks, that's economics. When you look at the fact that we have 2.6 million black-owned businesses in America, yet 2.5 million of our black-owned businesses only have one employee. 7 years ago, we had 1.9 million black-owned businesses. 1.8 million had one employee. 7 years ago, when we had 1.9 million black-owned businesses, they had an annual revenue of $110,000. Today, we have 700,000 more black-owned businesses, and their annual revenue is $54,000. And so you look at economics, then you begin to look at what's happening in media, where we literally are being fed a constant diet of entertainment. I keep saying, black people, we are laughing ourselves to death because we are watching comedies and dramas, and we are watching award shows, and then we are not getting our news and information, which actually is feeding our mind, preparing us for the future. And then you get to education. Then you get to a situation where you literally have HBCUs closing their doors. And you're going, wait a minute, how did we go from a generation of freed slaves opening institutions with their meager pennies, nickels, and dimes, yet if we are supposed to be the smartest, the largest, and the most well-off, how then are doors closing? That is a challenge that we must be making to each other. Now, I'm sure somebody's saying, well, yeah, but did you go to Texas A&M? Yes, I did. Because my brother was there. My parents had 3 of us in school at one time. And guess what? Even though I was the #1 high school student in communications, even though I was awarded the ambassador, even though Texas Southern University was right across the street, even though Prairie View was down the street, not a single one of them recruited me. My high school was a black high school. They would visit our high school. Not one said, well, at least here's $1,000. People are like, why'd you go to A&M? I'm like, because they called. I'm laying all of this out because we have to be completely intentional in everything that we're doing to prepare for 2043. To prepare ourselves for that day when this nation changes, because what we cannot do is we cannot leave it up to other folks to educate our children's children, to finance our institutions, and to tell our story. I've had people literally come to me and they say, man, it would be great if I love watching you when you were on CNN. Can you go back? And I said, why would I want to go back to something I don't control? And then they would look at me, they were like, yeah, but it's CNN. I'm like, yeah, but Don Lemon don't control his show. He doesn't determine who the guests are. He doesn't say, no, we're going to do this here. I said, why would I want to do that? I've had several people, this actually happened. Brothers, when we did NewsOne Now, cats would say, man, when you going to get you a show? And I was like, you know I'm on TV every day. 7 to 9 Eastern, 2 hours a day. He said, no, I mean a real show. I said, what do you mean a real show? He said, I mean like, MSNBC or CNN. I said, brother, let me help you out. I said, do you realize that this was Brian Williams was anchor of NBC. I said, do you realize when Brian Williams comes to D.C., he sits in the exact same chair I sit in? I said, you didn't realize that we contract out the studio to NBC News Channel. Same camera, same wall, same set. I said, we send the signal through the same fiber optic line that they do. But because it was on a black network, he, an African American, said it wasn't real. Now take that same thought process and apply it to what a lot of us do. And I'm being straight up. I want you to personally ask yourself, how many times have you personally, and I want you to be honest, I'm not going to make you raise your hand, I'm not going to make you stand up, but I can tell the look on some of y'all faces, y'all like, where is he about to go? Because I'm a little scared. I want you to ask yourself right now, how many times have you said personally, I hired a black person one time, it didn't work out. You know how black people are. I had to deal with that this week with comedian Ari Spears. Here you have a brother who's a comedian. He literally tweeted how trifling black people are and black businesses and things. I said, no, hell no. I'm not going to let you just say that. And he said, well, no, Roland, you want to be truthful? I said, bro, I've had some white folks who couldn't fix nothing. In fact, I'm dealing with a website right now who's been messing around with my cameras for 4 months. I'm like, it ain't black owned. Because what happens is we are furthering the denigration of our own, and we don't even realize when we're saying it. What I want us to understand is that this generation right now can decide the future of the next 2 generations. When I'm talking to your alumni president, I was asking him about giving and the initiatives that you're doing. I was very pleased to hear that alumni giving has gone from nearly 4% to 20%. No, I think y'all can actually clap louder than that. Because do understand, when I met with the Wilberforce president, when he got to Wilberforce, it was 1%, and then when he left, it was 9%. When I talked to Wayne Frederick at Howard University, when he arrived at Howard, undergraduate giving was 3.5%. Now it's up to 10%. I've talked to university HBCU presidents all across the country. I had the alumni president of FAMU on the show, and he talked about 5% of their graduates actually give back. And so for you to be at 20% is huge, but that's not the end of the road. Everything that we do today has to be not about today, but about 2043, about 2073, because there is no cavalry that is on its way to save black people other than black people. There is no foreign entity. There's nobody we can call. And I even try to tell people, I love when people say, well, man, I wish these athletes, I'm like, I don't want to hear none of that, because if you ain't giving a dime, don't you try to say what some athletes should be giving. And we have to literally challenge people and push people and prod people to say, no, you have to, you fund what you care about. You fund what you love. It is creating the exact same thing that we've done. We know how to tithe. Oh, we know, let's be clear, we know how to give to what we choose to give to. Oh, we know how to give to churches. Let me clear, I got honored by the AKAs. There ain't nothing in the world that's a product. I guarantee you they had some AKA speakers. They had some AKA lights. I'm telling y'all right now, my wife was a Delta on that convention. I'm like, what the hell don't y'all put y'all name on? If I see another Delta bag in my house, I'm like, look, it's too many damn bags. There's like 48 bags, and you only been a Delta about 7 years. I mean, what's up with all these bags y'all got? We talk about trillion-dollar spending power, but then it becomes, what are we actually investing in? When we invest in our education, we literally are investing in the future. And then we also got to learn to stop sitting here tripping on folk, because I've had people say, in fact, it was a colleague of mine in the Fort Worth Star Telegram as our first run-in. She was a Southern graduate. And I ain't going to call her name Valerie, it was a trip because we were standing by the photographer's desk, and she walked up and she said, I was meeting people, I was only there about a week. And she's like, oh, so you knew brother we hired. Oh yeah, I heard you went to A&M. It was one of the brothers who didn't know who he was. And I was like, well, first of all, baby, I said, where'd you go to school? She said, well, I went to Southern. I was like, oh, okay. I said, well, first and foremost, I grew up in a black neighborhood with a black family, went to a black church, black elementary school, middle school, high school. I said, so I was kind of clear I was black by the time I was 18. I said, so while you sit here, I said, want to dog somebody, I said, here's my question, how much you giving back? He got real quiet. See, that's how also I hit both, because see, I can't deal with people who love talking about their university and who wear sweatshirts, hats, bumper stickers, and see nothing back. We literally have to be in a state of mind of constantly challenging our own when it comes to our institutions. And not just individuals, but challenging the institutions themselves to be better. When I had the National Bankers Association on my show, I asked the brother, I said, hey, if I want to go to your website and I wanted to go to the sites of other black banks, can I? And he's like, well, we don't have as much money as the other banks. That was his first response, how broke we are. I said, bro, it's a hyperlink. I said, you literally go inside of your doggone website. I said, you copy and paste, put the hyperlink in, click save. You don't need $1 million to do that. He reverted to what we can't do versus that's a good idea, let's get it done. We have to challenge our institutions to be better because we have to remove the potential excuses from folks as to why they can't support stuff. If I hear another black person tell me I ain't giving to my HBCU because of my financial aid experience, I'm like, fool, dip your ass, graduate. You holding a 20-year grudge for somebody in the office tick you off. White folks, there's a white woman at A&M called me Ronald. I'm like, damn it, my name's Roland. I ain't mad at A&M because she called me Ronald. But we have to be in a state of mind where we are challenging ourselves and challenging our institutions to get better. I tell black media all the time, and I had on my show, if somebody on my show said, well, we're a black network, they didn't work on my show much longer. Because see, I didn't have a black standard. I don't have a black standard. I have a standard. And so I don't allow anybody around me to say, well, how we do. No, I don't know how we do. I know how I do, and it's going to be excellent. And so if we are going to have institutions that are educating our children and our children's children, if we are going to have our economic institutions, if we're going to have our media institutions, it is going to require us to support them in a way that, frankly, many of us have not done. And I know there's people sitting in our room that are like, yeah, but I give. But I want you to even question, can I give more? What actually can I do? Can I go outside and say, no, I'm going to personally go out and find 10 or 20 people who don't give and begin to pull them into this process? Our fraternities and sororities have reclamation projects where we actually go out and pull back in folks who have not been connected to our fraternities and sororities for 5, 10, 20 years. The exact same thing can happen when it comes to our institutions. When I did NewsOne Now, when I started hashtag HBCU Giving Day, literally I had some black folks saying, why are you starting that? You didn't go to HBCU. I said, which part of black did you not get? None of my nieces have had cancer, but I'm a national ambassador for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We again have to get out of this mindset that somehow that because I didn't go there, I can't support. That is absolutely nonsensical, because guess what? I may not have gone to an HBCU, but I've hired HBCU graduates. I've interfaced with folks as well, and so that's where we actually have to be. And not just even the question of giving, but also how are we utilizing our power in our jobs to ensure that we have a level of connections between our corporate institutions and also HBCUs. Because when you begin to talk about what's happening in STEM and robotics, what's happening in all these different areas, it's crazy that you don't have what Jackson has been doing with Silicon Valley. All these companies out there that had no connection to HBCUs who were turning out engineers by the dozens. And they were saying, we can't find them. They're like, we got you right here. What this requires, it requires all of us to say, we must protect this house. Because we really cannot be in a position where we hit 2043 and what we used to have is gone. I'm telling you right now, I'll rue the day when we have to ask somebody, can you please report on us? We're seeing it right now. Our black advertising agencies are dying. Why? Because the mainstream ad agencies, they used to say, we ain't care about the little black dollars. Now in 2018, those black dollars are now mainstream dollars. And what has happened is they've now come in and said, we're going to take over all these dollars. And so what has happened is our black firms are dying on the vine. We have fewer black firms. And in fact, when they compete for even the main contracts, they get targeted as well. We must be in a constant position that we are going to ensure our future based upon what we do today, which also means using our collective power and our dollars. If this state is unwilling to properly fund higher education, well then what should happen is in this state, you should do what Reverend Barber did in North Carolina when they launched Moral Mondays. It means literally, can you imagine, first of all, I can tell you right now what the response will be like if about a couple of thousand of y'all walked on the state capitol. We did, when they approved Loretta Lynch, I saw these black women who were going on Capitol Hill every week. So I'm like, where the brothers at? So Jeff Johnson, Jamal Bryan, and I, we organized Brothers for Loretta Lynch. And we had almost 200 brothers went to Capitol Hill. Yo, I ain't never seen that many cops come out on Capitol Hill for 200 black dudes. They were like, who y'all? Because we do understand, America responds differently when black folks show up en masse. Oh yeah, no, the folks get a little scared. But see what I'm trying to also get at is how do we use our collective power, because sometimes those of us who in our nice suits and our Louboutins and our Cohons, we got to also put on some marching shoes and go to state capitals and go to places who are also funding our institutions to let them know we are here. Showing up in those offices saying, no, we expect you to fund our institutions. I'm not asking us to only fund our institutions ourselves. I'm saying to America, we're going to also hold you accountable, because if you are going to fund LSU, then you are going to fund Southern. You're going to fund Grambling. You're not going to just fund Texas A&M, you're going to fund TSU. So what that means is sometimes those of us in the suites have to also get in the streets and say we are here too. Now I know for some folks in here a little uncomfortable. I know some of y'all are saying, well, Roland, that's nice, but I got a scooter and I got a walker. Well, guess what? If you make your trip to the casino in that scooter, you can make your trip to the state capitol in that same damn scooter. I know better. Make it back, you wiping your eyes. You crying, brother, you like, Lord, I gotta wipe my eyes on that one. When you leave here, I want you to revel in the photos and the people you saw and all of that. What I also want you to do is to say, what am I going to do between now and the next gathering? What am I going to do to ensure that the age demographic of this room looks different in 2 years? What am I going to do between now and the next gathering to take this thing even higher when it comes to your initiative to get 20,000 students on this campus? I told you, I remember that. So you try to see Preston was like, let me just real quick before I close. Y'all, President tried to give me some damn notes. I'm looking at him like, really? You trying to give me some notes in my speech? I was like, he's like, well, that's what I do. I said, well, ain't what you do tonight. Because he told me, and I remember, I locked it up in here. I'm like, I'm good. He wrote it down like, boy, if you don't get that sheet of paper out of my face. So I told you I got it. That's crucial because, again, 2043 is happening. If you are 25 years old or younger, stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4. What took y'all so long? Y'all had to figure out what y'all age was? Like y'all just start popping up. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you are 26 to 35, stand up. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Every single person in this room should make a commitment that when you come back 2 years from now, that half of this room should be that demographic. I ain't tell y'all to sit down. I ain't tell y'all to sit down. I'm not done with y'all. Because if a person who is here is 25, they're going to be in a leadership position in 25 years. And the students who are going to be graduates of Southern will be born in the next 5 years. I'm trying to lay this out to you because what I'm also doing is challenging those of you who are under 25, who are 26 to 35, to say, you can't depend on other folks in the room to bring your peers into this room. You can't depend on somebody else who is 55 and 60 to tell your peers why they should be giving, why they should be raising money. You must become leaders, and let me be clear, you don't need a title to do it. You don't need to be on the board to do it. You don't need to ask anybody permission to do it. You can organize fundraisers yourselves, meetings at your homes. The same thing black folks did to get Obama elected. You can do the exact same thing to fund our institutions. So I'm challenging those of you to also say, I can lead without somebody handing me a baton because I'm going to run my own damn race. Y'all take a seat. Let me close. the future of Black America depends on you. I know that's heavy for some of y'all. The future of Black America depends on you. What we will be in 2043 and beyond will be based upon what this generation does today. We cannot talk about what Dr. King did and Fannie Lou Hamer and Constance Baker Motley and Fannie Lou Hamer and all those folks, because guess what? They did their job. It's now incumbent upon us to accept the responsibility of leading our community and our culture to the next generation, because every decision that you make today will impact your children's children's children. We have to be in a position to understand that we can't depend upon anybody else. We must save ourselves. We have the knowledge, the insight, the power, and the economic resources to do it. The question is, do we have the courage and the tenacity and the willpower to actually do it? We must be willing to fight for our future, fight for our children. And if you are willing to be in this fight, then I dare challenge you to go to your national leadership, your local leadership, and say, what more can I do? I am ready to protect this house. I am ready to get on the field of battle to ensure, as Southern survives, and the system survives, that we actually have institutions that will be there when we are gone to glory. Because do understand, everything that you do today is going to help somebody you haven't even met, and hopefully they will look back and say, thank God there were a group of people in 2018 who had the audacity to think bigger than themselves and who were willing to be change agents. The question left for every single one of you is, what are you prepared to do? Okay, I want to see that.
Mr. Martin, will you please join us back on stage, please?